I woke up on someone's doorstep after being frozen solid for 6 hours in negative 20-degree weather. The person who found me thought I was already dead. My eyes were frozen open, my skin was as hard as a board, and somehow I'm still here to tell you about it. So this happened back in December of 1980. I was 19 years old, living in this small town in Minnesota called Lengby. And if you've never experienced a Minnesota winter, let me tell you, it's absolutely brutal. We're talking temperatures that can drop to 20, 30, even 40 degrees below zero on a really bad night. And this particular night, it was sitting at around negative 22 degrees. I'd been visiting some friends, and I was driving home late, real late, and I was on this remote country road, the kind where you don't see another car for miles and miles, just fields and farms and darkness. And then my car hit a patch of ice. I felt it slide, and I tried to correct it, but it was too late. My car went right off the road. At first, I thought, okay, I can get out of this. I tried rocking the car back and forth, giving it gas, everything I could think of. But the car was stuck, like really stuck. And then my engine just died, completely died. Wouldn't turn over no matter what I did. So there I was, middle of absolutely nowhere, negative 22 degrees, and my car had just become this metal freezer. I sat there for a minute, trying to think about what to do, and I knew I couldn't just stay in the car. Without the engine running, without any heat, I'd freeze to death in there. But I also knew the area pretty well. I grew up around there, and I remembered that my friend, Wally Melson, this cattle rancher, lived about 2 miles down the road. 2 miles, that was my only option. Here's the thing though, I wasn't dressed for a 2-mile walk in sub-zero temperatures. I had on regular clothes, just what I'd been wearing to visit friends. No heavy winter coat, no snow boots, nothing special, because I'd just been driving, you know. I figured I'd be in my warm car the whole time. I think we've all done that, just thrown on whatever, because we're only going from point A to point B. So I started walking, and at first I genuinely thought I could make it. I knew where I was going. I knew Wally's place. I just had to put one foot in front of the other. But the cold, it wasn't like regular cold. At negative 22 degrees, the air physically hurts when you breathe it in. It burns your lungs. And my fingers and toes, they started going numb almost immediately. I kept walking and walking. It probably took me well over an hour in those conditions. My whole body was screaming at me. Everything hurt. Everything was numb. But I could see Wally's property. I could see his house up ahead. I was so close, just 15 feet from his front door, 15 feet from warmth and safety and help. And that's when my body gave out. I don't even remember exactly what happened. I think I tripped, I fell, and I tried to get back up, but my muscles wouldn't respond anymore. They just wouldn't work. So I started crawling on my hands and knees through the snow. I crawled toward his doorstep. I remember reaching it, and then nothing. Everything just went black. What I didn't know at the time was that I laid on that doorstep for 6 hours, 6 full hours in negative 22-degree weather. And during that time, my body temperature dropped so low that I was clinically frozen. My eyes were frozen wide open. I physically couldn't blink. My skin was frozen solid. If someone had touched me, I would have felt hard as a board. For all intents and purposes, I should have been dead. Wally found me around 7 in the morning. He told me later that he was getting ready to start his day when he looked out his window and saw something on his front porch. He said at first he couldn't even tell what it was, just this shape. But then he realized it was a person. He ran outside, and there I was, frozen solid on his doorstep. Wally grabbed me by the collar and kind of skidded me into his porch because I was too frozen to pick up properly. He thought I was dead. He's told me that many times since. He was absolutely certain I was dead. But then he noticed these tiny bubbles coming out of my nose, just the smallest sign that maybe, somehow, I was still alive. He tried to get me into his car to rush me to the hospital, but my body was so stiff, so completely frozen that I wouldn't bend. I was frozen in this curled up position from how I'd been laying on the doorstep. They had to position me diagonally in the back seat because I literally couldn't be moved into a normal sitting position. They rushed me to the hospital in the nearby town of Foston, and from what the doctors told me later, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. My core body temperature was so low it didn't even register on a normal thermometer. My face was this grayish color. My eyes were still frozen open. One of the doctors said it was the most severe case of hypothermia and frostbite he'd ever seen in his entire career. They honestly didn't think I would survive. The doctors have been pretty open with me about that. They said even if I did somehow survive, I'd definitely lose my legs, probably my arms too, my nose and ears. They were preparing for massive amputations. That's how bad it was. But then they started the slow warming process, and my body started responding. My temperature started climbing back up, and after a few hours, I woke up. I just woke up. I can't explain how strange that was. One minute I'm walking to Wally's house, and the next minute I'm waking up in a hospital bed with no memory of anything in between. Over the next few weeks, I made a full recovery. No amputations, no brain damage, no permanent injuries whatsoever. The doctors called it a miracle. They said there's no medical explanation for how I survived 6 hours frozen solid in -22-degree weather. And honestly, I don't have an explanation either. I'm still here. I'm still alive. And to this day, I don't remember most of that night. I remember my car sliding off the road. I remember starting to walk. And then everything else is just blank until I woke up in the hospital. People ask me about it sometimes, and I really don't know what to tell them. I shouldn't be here, but I am.